You are about to spend $25, maybe $50 on a hydrangea. And in the next hour, in the act of planting it, you are going to make a decision that follows that plant for the rest of its life, for better or for worse, and you will not get to take it back. That is what makes planting different from everything else you do to a hydrangea. Because think about the other mistakes. Water it wrong this week, and you correct it next week. Feed it wrong this month, fix it next month. Prune it wrong this year, and it forgives you next year. Those mistakes are recoverable. You get another go. Planting mistakes are not like that. Plant it in the wrong spot, and it is in the wrong spot for years, until you dig the whole thing up and start over. Plant it too deep, and it sits there slowly rotting at the crown, and no amount of good care afterward undoes it. Get the ground wrong underneath it, and you have built a trap the roots cannot escape. So this is the one time with a hydrangea where getting it right on the day genuinely matters, because the day is the only chance you get to do it easily. And here is the number that should get your attention. The people at Proven Winners, who grow these plants by the million, say that one of these 5 mistakes, one specific one, is the single most common reason they see a newly planted hydrangea struggle and die. Not neglect months later. The way it went into the ground. So I am going to give you the 5 planting mistakes that ruin hydrangeas before they ever have a chance. The 5 that are hard or impossible to fix once they are made. And the very first one happens before you have even dug a hole. It happens in the shop, at the moment you pick the plant up. Because the most common way people ruin a hydrangea is that they buy the wrong one for the wrong place before they know what they are looking at. But first, understand why these 5 matter more than anything else on this channel. Here is the idea that ties all 5 of these together, and it is worth holding in your head while you dig. A hydrangea spends its whole life living with the day you planted it. Everything that happens in that hour, the spot you chose, how deep you set it, what you put in the hole, the state of the roots when they went in, gets locked in place the moment you firm the soil down. The plant then has to live inside those decisions for years. And most of them cannot be adjusted later without digging the entire plant back up and starting again, which sets it back a year or more, and which almost nobody actually does. So planting is not one step among many. It is the foundation. The whole plant sits on, and a plant on a bad foundation never really recovers. It just underperforms, quietly, for its entire life, and the gardener spends years fussing over water and feed and pruning, trying to fix from above a problem that was built in from below. And here is the good news buried in that. These 5 mistakes are all completely free to avoid. Every one of them costs nothing extra. It is not about buying a better plant or a special product. It is purely about knowing what to do in that 1 hour, and the knowing is the whole thing. So this is the highest leverage hour you will ever spend with this plant. Get these 5 right on the day, and you have removed most of the ways a hydrangea fails, before it has even started. And do me a favor before we start. Drop a comment telling me whether you are planting in the ground or in a pot, because 2 of these 5 change depending on which one you are doing. Now, mistake number 1. And you make it before you own a shovel. Mistake number 1. Buying the plant before you know which hydrangea it is and what that particular type needs. Here is how it goes wrong. You see a gorgeous hydrangea at the garden center. It is in full glorious bloom. You fall for it, you buy it, you bring it home, and then you find a nice empty spot in the garden and put it there. The plant chose the spot by being pretty, and that is completely backwards, because there is no such thing as a hydrangea's needs. There are 6 different types, and they want genuinely different things from the ground you are about to put them in. The single biggest split is sunlight, and getting it wrong is a permanent scorch or a permanent lack of flowers. Panicle hydrangeas and smooth hydrangeas are the sun-tolerant group. They will happily take 6 or more hours of direct sun in most of the country, and panicles in particular actually need a good amount of sun to bloom well. Put one of those in deep shade and it sulks and barely flowers. Big leaf hydrangeas, the classic blue and pink mopheads, and oak leaf hydrangeas are the opposite. They scorch in hot afternoon sun, especially in the warmer zones, 7 and up. Their leaves burn, their flowers brown out and cook, and they wilt every afternoon, no matter how much you water. Plant one of those in the blazing spot that a panicle would have loved, and you have signed it up for a lifetime of suffering. So a spot that is perfect for one hydrangea is genuinely harmful for another, and you cannot know which spot you need until you know which plant you have. This is also where the color question lives, and where people get their hearts broken, because only 2 of the 6 can change color at all, and no amount of anything makes the other 4 budge. But that is a whole subject in itself. So before you buy, identify the type, then match it to a spot you actually have. Do not buy a plant and then hunt for somewhere to put it. A hydrangea does not choose its spot by being pretty in the shop. You choose its spot by knowing what it is. Mistake number 2. Planting it where the light is wrong, because that is the one thing you can never change. You can change almost anything about a planting site after the fact. You can improve the soil, add water, add mulch, feed it. But you cannot move the sun. Where the light falls on that spot is fixed forever, so if you get the light wrong, the only fix is to dig the plant up and move it. Which means this is the decision to get right before the shovel goes in. We covered which type wants what. Now, here is the spot that actually solves it for almost everybody, and it is worth knowing because it is so simple. The east side of the house. Morning sun, afternoon shade. That single exposure suits very nearly every hydrangea there is, because morning sun is gentle and gives the plant the light it needs, while the building shades it from the fierce afternoon sun that does the damage. If you have an east-facing spot and you are not sure what else to do, put the hydrangea there. Now the 2 ways people get it wrong, and what each one costs. Too much sun, particularly hot afternoon sun in a warm climate, and especially on a big leaf or an oak leaf. The leaves scorch and crisp at the edges. The flowers brown out and cook mid-season instead of aging gracefully. And the plant wilts flat every single afternoon because its shallow roots cannot pull water fast enough to replace what those blazing leaves are losing. People see that afternoon wilt and think the plant is thirsty and pour on more water, when the real problem is that the plant is in the wrong place. Too much shade, and you get the opposite disappointment. Deep shade, under a dense tree or against a sunless north wall, gives you a healthy-looking leafy plant with very few flowers, weaker fall color, and more mildew, because the air stays damp and still in there. The minimum for most hydrangeas is about 4 hours of direct light. Below that, you are growing a shrub for its leaves. You can fix the soil later. You can add water later. You cannot move the sun, ever. Mistake number 3. Planting it too deep. This is the most common physical planting mistake there is, and it is a slow killer. Here is the mistake, and here is exactly why people make it. Every instinct tells you that planting deep is planting securely, that you are tucking the plant in firmly, giving it a stable footing. So people dig a nice deep hole and set the plant down low, with soil coming up around the base of the stems, and they have just started a slow arat. The critical part of a hydrangea is the crown. That is the point where the stems meet the roots, right at the base of the plant. And that crown is not built to be buried. It needs to sit at the soil surface, in contact with air. Pile soil up over it, and you trap constant moisture against tissue that cannot handle it, and that tissue begins to rot. Crown rot and stem rot set in, the plant loses vigor, it declines, and here is the cruel part. It often does not die quickly and obviously. It just sits there, year after year, weak and stunted and never thriving, while you cannot work out what is wrong with it. So here is the rule, and it is simple and exact. The top of the root ball should sit level with the surrounding soil, or even half an inch above it, never below. When you have set the plant in the hole, the top of that root ball should be right at grade or slightly proud of it, like a shoulder just breaking the surface. And here is the specific trap that causes this, so you can avoid it. Nursery plants are very often potted deep in their containers, with the true crown sitting well below the rim of the pot. So if you just dig a hole the depth of the pot and drop the whole root ball in to match, you have buried the crown without realizing it. Do not match the pot. Find the actual crown, the point where the stems flare out from the roots, and set the plant so that flare sits at the surface. If that means the root ball stands a little proud, that is correct. There is a simple check. Lay a stick or the handle of your shovel flat across the top of the hole and use it as a level line to see exactly where the top of the root ball sits against the surrounding ground. Adjust the soil underneath until it is right before you backfill. And remember what is at stake, because it is the whole reason to be careful. A hydrangea cannot be rescued from root rot once it has reached the crown. You do not get to fix this one later. You get it right now, or you lose the plant slowly. Plant a hydrangea like a shoulder at the surface, not a post in the ground. Quick one, because look at what mistakes 1 and 3 have in common. Number 1 was buying the plant before you knew which of the 6 types it was. And number 3, planting depth is one of the few rules that is actually the same across all of them. And that combination is the whole story of hydrangeas. Some things depend entirely on the type, and some do not. And the trouble is that almost nobody is ever told which is which. That is exactly the problem this creates. A hydrangea is not one plant, it is 6, and they want different light. They get pruned at different times, and only 2 of them can change color at all. So a well-meaning gardener does one sensible thing to all of them, and gets a different wrong result on each, and ends up convinced hydrangeas are difficult. They are not difficult, they are unlabeled. So I wrote the honest version down. It is called the Hydrangea Mastery Guide. All 6 types, told apart in 90 seconds, because every hydrangea decision you will ever make starts right there, including the spot you are about to plant one in. The prune by type calendar, so you never cut off your own flowers. The real reason the color changes, which is not the pH, whatever you were told. And the 5 myths that waste an entire season. 29 pages, $27, instant PDF, 7-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the description at waltgreer.com. And it ends the way this channel always ends. With the part nobody selling you something will print. 4 of the 6 types cannot change color at all, no matter what you pour on them. Fertilizer will never fix a hydrangea that will not bloom, because a guide that only tells you what to do is only half a guide. Now, mistake number 4. And this is the one the big growers say kills more newly planted hydrangeas than anything else. It is also the one that feels the most like you are helping. Mistake number 4. Digging a small hole and filling it with lovely rich soil. This is the one the big growers say kills more newly planted hydrangeas than anything else, and it feels exactly like generosity. Here is what everybody does, with the best intentions in the world. You dig a hole roughly the size of the pot. You look at the plain, ordinary, maybe clayish soil that came out of it, and you think, my new plant deserves better than that. So you fill the hole back in with the good stuff. Bagged compost, potting mix, peat, rich dark topsoil. You are giving the plant a soft, luxurious bed to grow into. And you have just built it a bathtub. Here is the physics, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That fluffy, rich amended soil you put in the hole has large spaces between its particles, so it holds a great deal of water. The natural soil all around it, especially if it is clay, has tiny spaces and holds much less. So when water moves down through the ground and reaches your hole, it hits that boundary and it stops. It cannot move easily from the loose material into the dense material around it. So it collects. It pools in the hole, in that nice soft soil, right around the roots, exactly like water sitting in a bathtub with the plug in. and a hydrangea sitting in a tub of waterlogged soil rots at the roots. Which brings back the rule from a moment ago, the one that has no mercy. Once root rot reaches the crown, the plant cannot be saved. The people at Proven Winners, who grow these by the million, say improper soil amending like this is the #1 reason they see new plants struggle and die, and they name panicle hydrangeas specifically. Now, I have to be honest with you here, because the experts genuinely do not fully agree on this one, and you deserve to know that. Some horticulturists, including Linda Chalker-Scott and the great hydrangea authority Michael Durr, say do not amend the planting hole at all, just backfill with the same native soil that came out of it. Others are comfortable with a modest amount of compost, around 20 to 30%, mixed in. That part is a real debate. But here is what every side of it agrees on completely, and it is the actual fix. Do not dig a small rich hole. If you want to improve the soil, improve a wide area, not a deep pocket. Dig your hole only as deep as the root ball, but 2 to 3 times as wide. And if you are amending at all, work that compost into the whole broad area you loosened, so there is no sharp boundary for water to pool against and no tub for it to fill. The roots can then grow outward through gradually improving soil instead of drowning in a rich well. So the honest version is this: wide, not deep. Native soil in the hole, or at most gently amended over a broad area. Never a small pit of fluffy compost in the middle of heavy ground. You are not digging a hole and filling it with luxury. You are loosening a wide bed for roots to spread into. Mistake number 5. Dropping the plant in with its roots still wound in a tight ball, exactly as it came out of the pot. This is the last thing that happens before you backfill, and it is the easiest to skip because the plant looks completely fine. You slide it out of the nursery pot. The root ball holds its shape perfectly, nice and neat, and you set that tidy cylinder straight into the hole. Done. The problem is what those roots do next. A plant that has been in its pot a while becomes root-bound, with the roots circling round and round the inside of the container because they hit the plastic wall and had nowhere else to go. And here is the thing. When you plant that root ball as is, the roots do not suddenly understand they are free. They keep doing what they learned. They keep circling in the same tight spiral, round and round in the shape of a pot that is not even there anymore. So the plant never roots out into the surrounding soil. It sits in the ground, as if it were still in its container, on a root system that strangles itself as it thickens, sometimes girdling and killing the plant years later. And in the meantime, it cannot take up water and nutrients properly because its roots are all locked in a knot. The fix takes about 30 seconds. Before the plant goes in the hole, look at the root ball. If you see roots circling the outside, or a dense matted spiral at the bottom, break it up. Tease the roots loose with your fingers, and if it is really tight and woody, take a knife or your spade and score straight down the sides in a few places, cutting through that outer layer of circling roots. It feels brutal. It is exactly right. You are telling the roots to stop circling and start pushing outward, and cutting them is what triggers fresh new roots to grow out into the soil. Now, if you are planting in a container instead of the ground, 2 things decide everything. Use a pot with real drainage holes, because a hydrangea in a pot with no way for water to escape is a hydrangea in a permanent bath, and terracotta breathes better than glazed or plastic. And use an actual potting mix, not garden soil, which compacts to concrete in a pot. A blend along the lines of good potting mix with a quarter of perlite and some bark for air is ideal. Everything else, the depth rule, the crown at the surface, the light, is exactly the same as in the ground. Roots do not know the pot is gone. You have to tell them by breaking the circle. Before we finish, send this to one person you know who is about to plant a hydrangea this weekend. Just the link. This is the 1 hour where 5 minutes of knowing saves them years of a plant that never quite works. And once it is in the ground wrong, the easy window is gone. Now here is the whole thing, in one idea. A hydrangea lives its entire life inside the hour you planted it. Water and pruning you can fix later. The spot, the depth, and the ground underneath it, you cannot. So the day it goes in is the day that matters, and all 5 of these mistakes are free to avoid. So, know which of the 6 types it is before you buy it, because the right spot depends entirely on that, and a panicle and a big leaf want opposite amounts of sun. Put it where the light is. Right, because you can change everything about a site except the sun. Morning sun and afternoon shade, the east side of the house, suits almost every hydrangea there is. Plant it at the right depth, crown at the surface or a touch above, never buried, because a buried crown rots slowly and cannot be saved once it goes. Do not dig a small hole and fill it with rich soil, because that builds a bathtub that drowns the roots. Wide, not deep, and native soil in the hole, or at most gently amended over a broad area. And break up the root ball before it goes in, so the roots push out into the ground instead of strangling themselves in the circle they learned in the pot. Get those 5 right in that 1 hour, and you have removed most of the ways this plant can fail before it has even started. That is the whole secret of a hydrangea that thrives. It is not what you do for it over the years. It is what you did for it on the first day. You cannot care a hydrangea out of a bad planting. You can only plant it right in the first place. So subscribe and hit the bell, and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library. Real horticulture, exact rules, and we tell you straight, including when the experts themselves disagree. It is free, and it always will be. And drop a comment telling me which of these 5 you have made before, because I have made at least 2 of them myself, and the plant never told me until it was too late. Next time, another plant where the first hour decides the next 10 years. I will see you in the next one.